Hello, this is Sweet June. I'm back at you. How's everybody doing? Hoping everybody's having a blessed day. Um, I don't celebrate Christmas, but hope everybody's having a good day. Um, what I want to talk about is I want to talk about um, are black women too strong and independent? That's what I want to talk about. Are black women too strong and independent? That's a good question. Um, First of all, I think that black women, as black women, we have to be stronger than other races of women. We have to be stronger because of everything that, um, first of all, we're a double minority. We're women and we're female. We're women and we're female. We're black and we're female. So we are a double minority. And historically, black women have had to go through a lot over the last generations. Black women have had to go through a lot of stuff, from slavery all the way up until now. Black women have had to endure. Black women have had to hold down the fort ever since the beginning of time, ever since um, when slavery first started. When the slave masters and everything would sell off the husbands, and even a lot of times would sell the children. And a lot of times she was separated. The black women were separated from their children. That had to be very painful to endure. But back in those days, the black women had to be strong. They had to be strong, and they had to hold up whatever family they had left. They had to hold up. And historically, it's been like that since the beginning of time. Black women have had to hold down the fort. Black women have had to endure, you know, racism, sexism, and having to hold up the family, and black women have been doing that since the beginning of time. And so throughout the centuries and the decades, and all the way from slavery all the way up until now, um, it just runs in our bloodline. I think it runs in our bloodline. Where black women have always had to be strong. Because we've had so many disadvantages, um, and so much adversity by being black and being female. We have to go through sexism and racism, and a lot of us are heads of households, and we've had to hold down the fort. We've had to hold down the fort. We've had to hold down families. We had to maintain the house, hold down, make the money, raise the kids, and it's been like that. I know my grandmother was a single mom. My grandmother was a single mom. Um, my grandmother was married, but I guess according to my mother started to tell me more and more about my grandmother now. Um, when my grandmother was alive, she really didn't. I was a kid anyway, so it wasn't a whole lot she was going to tell me. But my mom said my grandmother didn't talk about a lot of stuff, and um, she didn't. I didn't know a lot of things about her, and so my mom is telling me a lot of things about my grandmother, what my grandmother had to endure, and my grandmother, um, she was a single mom, but she was married. She was married to my granddad, but my granddad, I guess I don't know what happened. The marriage didn't work out, And she winded up raising. It was my mom and my aunt, and she might have winded up raising my mom and my aunt by herself. And so my grandmother was a single mom. I come from a long line of single moms, and my mother was a single mom. My mom was married to my dad for 10 years, and they got a divorce, and she had to raise 4 kids all on her own, for many years. And my aunt, she was a single mom. Of course, my aunt never married. My aunt had 2 sons. Um, my one cousin that's now deceased, and my other cousin. So my aunt had 2 sons, and she was never married. My mother was married for 10 years to my dad and got a divorce, and she had to raise 4 kids on her own. So I come from a long line of single moms, and um, I was as growing up, I was surrounded by single moms. Now my aunt was a single mom. My mom was a single mom. Um, my mother's friend that lived down the street, she was a single mom. There was another single mom. There was 2 or 3 other single moms that was on my street. The neighbors were single moms, and my aunt's neighbors where she lived at, they were her friend, close friend she had was a single mom. Plus, it was other 2 neighbors um, that she had was single moms. So that's like growing up. That's all I knew. Growing up, um, that's all I pretty much knew was single moms. I was surrounded by strong women, you know, growing up because pretty much all I seen, of course, and I wind up being a single mom myself. But growing up, that was pretty much all I seen is black women doing it themselves. You know, that's all I seen growing up was black women working, holding down the house, maintaining households and raising kids. That's all I knew. That's all I seen growing up. And I got the message, and actually, I was always told, um, I got the message from an early age that a man is not somebody that you can depend on. That a woman can't depend on a man. Maybe that wasn't the right message. Um, Knowing the Bible like I know it now, I realized that that probably wasn't, because the man is supposed to be the head. But that's all I knew growing up. I was surrounded by single moms, so that's all I knew. And I got the message that a man can't be. You can't depend on a man. This is the message that I got growing up as a little girl. You can't depend on a man. You gotta know how to stand on your own 2 feet. You gotta know how to stand on your own 2 feet because you can't depend on a man. So you got to know how to hold it down. And you got to know how to stand on your own 2 feet because you can't depend on a man. And that's the message that I got growing up because my mom, you have to understand, my grandmother was a single mom. My mom was a single mom. My aunt was a single mom. Her friend was a single mom. Women in the neighborhood were single moms. Women in my aunt's neighborhood and her friends were single moms. So I was surrounded by single moms growing up. I marinated on that one day. I was like, wow, that kind of blew my mind. It's like, wow, that's all I knew. That's all I was exposed to growing up. I was surrounded by strong black women growing up. I didn't have a dad growing up, but I was raised by strong black women. I was raised by strong women. I was surrounded by strong black women growing up. Black women that went to work, black women that held down the house, making all the decisions, raising the kids. And the fathers were, well, they were wherever. They wasn't really around. They wasn't around. I don't know. They were gone. They wasn't around. So, and that's just in my life period, in my life span. So, and it's been like that from for many, many, many black women, or decades and decades. But that's just my personal experience in my life. I was surrounded by strong black women, and I got the message that growing up that you can't depend on a man. A woman can't depend on a man. You got to know how to hold it down. My mom held it down. My mom, went to work. She went to work. She, my dad left, and she um, paid the bills, paid the mortgage, paid the bills. She had a car. My grandmother would help my mom. My grandmother would come in and get us off to school and everything. And my grandmother helped. My aunt, I would go to my aunt's house and my aunt would help out. But my mom watched my aunts. My mom actually practically raised 6 kids because my aunt was in the service. So she um, practically raised her 2 sons. So my mom, technically she had 4 kids, but technically she practically raised 4 kids. And after my dad left when I was 5 years old, and I don't remember him before that. So my older sister remembers everything as far as my dad being at home. But my mom was a housewife until my dad left, and then when my dad left, she went out and got a job. She paid the house note. She paid the bills. My mom did it all. She did everything, and everything that I know now as a single mom, I learned it from my mother. I learned it from my mom. I learned it from my aunt. My aunt did the same thing. My aunt was in the service. My aunt worked. My aunt worked a lot of years, and my aunt's in her 70s, and she still works. And she had 2 sons. That's what she did. She paid the held down the house, paid the bills, and held down the house. My aunt did the same thing. My grandmother had her house. She worked until she retired. And so that's all I knew. I was surrounded by strong black women. I grew up surrounded by strong black women. So everything that I know as a single mom that I learned it from my mom and my aunt and my grandmother and the women that I was around growing up. You know, so um, I think traditionally, most of the time, black women have had to do that. Black women have had to hold down the fort from many, and now the marital rate for black women is only 30%. There's 70% of households are headed by single black females. Now, as I stated in some of my other videos, they don't break statistics down. They don't break them down. That doesn't necessarily mean that they say 70% of households are headed by black females. They don't tell you of how many of those households have children in them, because you have a lot of black females that don't have kids, and I know some black females that don't have kids. They're the head of the household. Well, those black females get thrown into that statistic, and they compile them all together. So when they people say it's 70%, people automatically assume that they're talking about all single moms. But you have to understand that there's a lot of black women that don't have kids as in that statistic as well, because they don't break the statistics down. Oh well, with that being said, I think that in other words, what I'm trying to say is black women has always had to be strong. We've always had to be strong. We've had to endure racism. We have to endure racism and sexism. And black women have always had to hold down the fort, raise kids by ourselves in most cases. And still, black women are still doing that. And so we have to be strong. Black women have to be strong because you have white females that are single parents as well. There's some white women that are single parents, but and to be a single mother, period, you have to be strong. To be a single parent, period. But black women, we have to really be strong because we not only have to endure sexism, we have to endure racism as well. And so, um, statistically, we make less money. We don't make as much money as our white counterparts. Um, you know, we're at a huge disadvantage. And, people come on YouTube talking about black women are only worth $5 and all that kind of crap. I don't feed into all that. But statistically, um, our net worth is low, you know, but there's a lot of factors that play into that because we have to deal with sexism and racism as well. Those factors play into that. Black women have always had to hold down the fort, so we have to be strong. And a lot of times, people say that, particularly black men, have made the complaint that black women are too strong, that we're too strong, and but I don't think that black women are too strong. I think that black women have to be strong. We have to be stronger than other races of women because of all the things that we have to endure. A lot of us are single. A lot of us are single parents. A lot of us are raising children on our own. I know over the years I've had to be strong. You know, sometimes being strong is your only option. Being strong is your only option. You don't have any other choice but to be strong a lot of times because you have children that you have to look after. The kids don't ask to be here. You know, you lay down, the father lay down and make the kids. If the father leaves, then the woman has got to do what she got to do. If the father walks away, then as a mother, you have to do what you have to do. Is it right that he walks away? No, it ain't right he walks away. But at the end of the day, as a mother, you have to do what you have to do. The children didn't ask to come here, so you have to do what you have to do. If it means going out working, um, you know, paying the bills, holding down the fort, making sure that there's food on the table, that's what you have to do. And we have to be strong. It's like we have no choice. In most cases, black women don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. We have to be strong. So a lot of black women, I guess, come across as being too strong. It's because in most cases, 99% of the time, we have to be. Because I'm not bashing black men, but um, 80% of the time, 90% of the time, we can't depend on our men to have our backs. And with all the black women bashing going on in the black community, you you look at it for yourself. Look at what's going on YouTube. You know, um, not knocking the good black men out there. Are a lot of good black men that are holding it down for their women and their families, but unfortunately, there's not enough of them. There's not enough of them. Those kind of black men are in the minority, and in most cases, us black women, we got to do what we have to do, and we have to be strong. So I think no, in my opinion, black women aren't too independent. Black women aren't too strong. We we're black females. I mean, we're black females. We're a double minority, and in most cases, we got to do it on our own, and we have to do what we have to do. And being strong in most cases is our only option. I know over the years it was my only option. I didn't have the luxury of falling out and giving up on life. If I'm depressed, I get my cry out, do what I have to do, and I vent, get my cry out, get up and shake it off and get up and do what I have to do the next day. I didn't have the luxury, and I still don't have the luxury of you know, checking out, falling out or whatever, checking out. You know, Being strong in most cases is black women's only option in life. In most cases, that's our only option. And everybody's situation is different. Like you got some black women that were married and they got a divorce, or their husband lost their husband in death because there's a lot of black men that are getting killed and they lost their husband in death, or they were married, they got a divorce. Not all black women are single parents because of having children out of wedlock. Some black women were married. Some black women um, got a divorce. Some black women lost their husband in death. So everybody's situation is different. All, and then you got some black women. I know some black women that don't even have kids, and but they got their own house. They're working, and they got to hold down the fort to take care of themselves. They don't have a husband. So I think black women are independent is because we have to be. We're strong is because we have to be. And I don't think. Let me know in the comments section. That's the question. Are black women too strong and independent? But that's my take. Um, I think not. I don't think we are. You know, I think that historically we've always had to be strong. We've always it's we there has never been any other option for us but to be strong. So let me know in the comment section what you think. This is Sweet June.